the perfection that have had and not using it in a way of helping cut through deluded knowing for the beings, dwelling in the perfection, dwelling within oneself, there are a lot of karma created by oneself. Ahosi, ahosi. When the Mahabodhisattva leading those who bless beings, leading towards blessing and sharing the perfections in every period of time, no matter where they are formed up in any realms of existence, in the heaven realms, wherever they are to bless the beings. The great blessed fortunes that have been had and received from the great perfections, from the Buddhas, they are to be shared blessing. If not using for the blessing beings, dwelling in one's perfections, it will only creating karma and much more creating karma than all the beings, more suffering than the beings. Because the perfection is like two blades of a sword, receiving from the Buddhas and the great perfections. This is the perfection that is to help the beings in cutting deluded knowing and liberating from the suffering. When using it in the way of attachments and fixated to living lifestyles, in the end, it creating karma so much, competing to have to be, to live, competing to rule, and competing and quarreling one another. Where are the causes and the factors from this? Who did it first? Who began first? Listen well. Everyone is the one who started it. Everyone. Where is it that one started? When one starts to be fixated to one's own perfection, one's own blessed fortunes. That's when there is the mistake. Everyone is the one who started first. There is no such a thing as before or after. Everyone is starting. When one is fixated to one's own perfection and dwell in it. When one begins and starts to not using the perfection in the way of blessing beings. That is starting of karma and its cycle. On all these days that there are quarrels and killings, they are the bodhisattvas who come to rule nations and countries. Leaders of a country, leaders of the world, these are the bodhisattvas. But they are fixated to their perfection, to their blessed fortunes. Fixated to living lifestyles, fixated to comforts and happiness. In all forms of living lifestyles. The mind is not open towards samsara. If the mind is thinking of giving and blessing samsara, blessing the beings, there will not be anything as a pitfall in the form of fixated to perfections, to have more perfections or less perfections. But They have the mind that is fixated to oneself.
จิตสังสารวัฏจะเป็นจิตครอบครัวอยู่เป็นจิต
It is the mind that is all about one's own family.
มีปัญญาอยู่เป็นจิตพี่น้องบริวารอยู่เป็นจิตโคตรเง่าเหล่ากออยู่เรียกเขาเรียก
That the mind that is all about one's own lineage, one's own family, one's own fellow people.
ว่ามันเป็นจิตที่คับแคบ
This is the narrow-minded.
มันไม่สมมาพาควรมันไม่สมมากกับไอ้บารมีจากพุทธะจากโพธิสัตว์
This is not worth having the perfection that is received from the Mahabodhisattvas, from the Buddhas.
ตัวเองอย่างนี้
Dwelling within oneself, for example.
จิตต้องหมายถึงสังสารวัฏเลยต้องหมายถึงทุกสิ่งทุกอย่างไปด้วยกันเลย
The mind has to be meant for samsara and meant for everything in an instant.
เป็นบารมีที่เสถียรกันไปกับสังสารวัฏดับ
This will be the perfection that is balanced with samsara in the way of blessing. Otherwise, it's circling in its narrowness for eons of times, for lifetimes after lifetimes, just like the tongue within the mouth, with the teeth, always clashing with each other on and on endlessly. Because it's not getting out from the teeth, from the tongue, from itself. Not getting out from the mouth. Not getting out from one's own self. From one's own family, the mind. There is just the delusive attachment with one's own family. Not yet being beyond the families. Not beyond oneself. Not yet beyond one's own descendants. Therefore, the suffering is circling as it is, as its limitation. That's it. The perfection or the parami is circling in its narrowness. Therefore, there's a lot of karma created. A lot of karma. And it cycles so much circling. Then this is derived from the attachment and fixation. This is coming and derived from one's own attachment in everyone. That's why there is a question, who is started first? The one who is fixated is the one who started first, and that is in everyone. One started to be fixated, the complication is there, troubling is there. Therefore, the perfection from the Buddhas, they are from the non-attachment, from the enlightenment. We have to be giving for samsara from the beings, not to lead them, not to lead the beings to be deluded, to be fixated, to lead oneself to be fixated and the beings to be fixated. Is it clear? And this is wrong to receive the perfection from the Buddhas in such a way. Once begin to be fixated to it, it's wrong already. Who are you going to put the blame to as the one who is wrong, huh? The more you put the blame on someone, the more you are wrong yourself. Whenever one begin to be fixated to the perfection, that is the beginning of the suffering. And it's wrong. And then what is the outcome? There is no yielding towards one another, no giving for each other, no sharing towards one another, because there is just fixation within oneself. Therefore, just grasping for oneself. for oneself, for one's own people. When there is a fixation, it will follow in such a way. And this is wrong to the noble truth, because everything is not about an attachment. When there is a fixation, it's wrong to this truth. Just like fixated towards the non-fixation, what will happen? What will happen? Suffering. Suffering within oneself is not sufficient. It is passing on the suffering to others furthermore. You see that there is so much trouble that is further and further. That's why those who have blessed fortune and perfection, if they are deluded, they will be more deluded than the ordinary people, because the power of the perfection has two blades. If it is to be used to help cut through deluded knowing for samsara, for the beings, it will be so powerful. But if it is leading the beings to be deluded, then it is also will be greatly. Because the perfection is greatly as well. Therefore, when there is suffering, the suffering is greater than the being's suffering. When creating karma, we will also creating karma more than the beings. Because one is the leader in leading the beings to create karma. Therefore, it is much more power to create karma, because one is the leader. When leading the fellows to quarrels, to conflicts with each other, one is the leader to do that. You see, you must understand this point. That is wrong. By one's own fixation, one begin to be fixated to one's own perfection, to oneself. And all the delusive attachment will be rooting down further and further. With this and that, it continue to be wrong towards the noble truth, the Satya Dhamma, towards the deliverance, towards the liberation of sufferings, towards the enlightenment, towards the Buddhas. Wrong. Wrong to the Bodhisattvas, wrong to the great perfections, the Mahabharami. Wrong to the true origin of oneself, which is derived from which one of the graces, which one of the great perfection. That is wrong to the true origin of one's own root. Therefore, all the quarrels and conflicts is because of the deluded attachment. Being obsessed to get, to gain, to have, to be, to become. Every lifetime one dies and that's it. But never be conscious about it. Death takes us apart from everything in every lifetime. Death or birth doesn't belong to oneself. Death and is bygone. Birth is bygone. There is no oneself that is intrinsic. just form and formlessness that formed up,
เราไม่ตัดสู้
coming and going,
จากความยึดติด
bygone to itself.
มันก็เหมือนไม่ผ่านมันเรียน
There is no enlightenment to the non-attachments in each lifetime. It's like learning but not passing the exam.
ผ่านสอบไม่ผ่านแล้วเรื่องมหากรุณาเรื่องการโปรด
And all about the blessing, the great perfection. If it is only about oneself, and oneself, this is not passing at all.
เพราะมหากรุณาเนี่ย
Because the great compassion is all about samsara.
รู้ไหมถ้าไม่มีสังสารวัฏ
Without samsara, there will be no great compassion existing.
และมหากรุณาเนี่ยเขา
Therefore, why we assume up the great compassion?
จบด้วยสังสารวัฏ
It is to give ending for samsara, helping samsara towards ending.
ถ้าไม่มีสังสารวัฏ
Without samsara,
ไม่มีเลยแม้แต่นิดเดียว
the great compassion will not be assumed up, even a tiny bit.
ก็โลภขึ้นเลยจากองค์พุทธะจากองค์มหาบารมี
Not assumed up even a tiny bit by the Buddhas, by the great perfections,
ไม่ถูกก็โลภขึ้นเลยจากพระโพธิสัตว์หรือจากอรหันต์
by the Bodhisattvas or the Arahants, the fully enlightened ones.
จะไม่ถูกก็โลภขึ้นเลย
The great compassion will not be formed up if samsara doesn't exist.
แต่เมื่อมันยังมีสังสารวัฏ
But samsara still remain, samsara of the suffering of the beings.
ท่านจึงอุปโลก
Still remain.
ขึ้นมาเพื่อจงช่วยสรรพสัตว์
The great compassion is formed up by the graces to help bless and end suffering for samsara, for the beings.
แล้วใครก็มาจากรากเหง้าตรงไหน มาจากหน่อหรือว่าทางกูลจากพระองค์ไหนองค์
Where are you coming from? Where is your lineage? From which of the graces? The Buddha sees that have been the embodiments of the great Buddhas. Which one of the great Buddhas?
องค์มหาพุทธะแบ่ง
The great Buddhas
มากมายใน
have
สมัยที่ยังไม่ได้ตรัสรู้เนี่ยเป็นภาพ
had a lot of embodiments so much before
ปีนี้ในสังสารวัฏ
their enlightenment,
ภูมิมีหมดเลย
and they are in all realms of existence. They have been in all realms of existence, in the samsara, in the world, permeated everywhere,
รู้ไหมแม้แต่นรก
even in hell realm.
ก็ยังมีภาคส่วนของโพธิสัตว์
They are the embodiments
เป็นพญายม
of the Mahabodhisattvas doing the work like authorities in hell realms. They are there.
จ้าอยู่หมดทุกชั้นทุกภูมิ
They are the embodiments from the Mahabuddhas that are formed up everywhere in all realms of existence.
แต่นั้นความผิดมันตรงไหนพอเริ่มติดเริ่มยึดมันก็ผิดแล้ว
So, it is wrong when one started to be fixated only.
จะบอกว่าใครผิดนั่นน่ะมั่ว
If one has to say that this person is wrong, this person or that person is wrong, that is randomized already.
ทุกคนนั่นแหละพอเริ่ม
Everyone,
ผิดแล้ว
when started to be fixated, that is the wrong one, wrong action.
บอกว่าใครผิดใครถูกก็เถียงกันอยู่นั่นแหละ
There is always an argument who is right, who is wrong.
ทะเลาะกันอยู่นั่น
Always argue about that. This is random.
แล้ว
Once anyone who started to be fixated, that is the one who is wrong.
ฉะนั้นจิตกับสังสารวัฏมันต้องเป็นสิ่งเดียวกันไปแบบให้ไง
Therefore, the mind and samsara has to be one in the way of giving,
แบบแผ่ให้
in the way of sharing blessing. That
เกี่ยวกับไม่ไม่
it has nothing to do with attachment or non-attachment, engaging or disengaging.
นี่เรียกว่าสลายความยึดติดให้
This will dissolve all about attachment altogether for one another.
แล้วกันไป
相互之间瓦解的那些执着，帮助着相互瓦解执着的各自各的。
จะมันจะได้นอกเหนือสุขนอกเหนือทุกข์
In this way, we will be beyond
กรรม
suffering or happiness. To be the way in which just karma, we will just stuck
แค่ติดแค่ยึด
with just
แค่สุขแค่ทุกข์
happiness or suffering. This is temporary. This is not eternal. That's why there is terminology that purifying itself, that which has nothing to do with engaging or disengaging, involvement or non-involvement. Nothing is within involvement or non-involvement, dissolving all the attachment within the mind of samsara. Diligently use reminders to purify themselves constantly, helping through unwinding and releasing constantly. Because when those who have perfection, a lot of perfection, when there is a delusion, is a lot. Because the power is more than the beings. The perfection is received from the Buddhas, Maha Bodhisattvas. This is the perfection of liberation by the foundation of the non-attachment. When this parami, this perfection is be fixated to itself, that is the beginning of the mistake by everyone. It will create karma that follows a lot in various ways. To create karma in this way and that way, variously, and creating karmic difficulties everywhere in the samsara. Therefore, those with great blessed fortune and perfection must refine this point well. Refining oneself well. Don't be obsessed with oneself. Oneself and oneself, this is fake, this is false. Which one is it that is oneself? Body, mind, knowing is temporary. Memory is temporary. Which one is oneself? It's just claiming oneself temporarily each time. That is misleading. By one's own thinking, by one's own misleading thought about oneself, about birth, sickness, old age, and death. All about oneself. It's not about oneself at all. Death doesn't grasp itself. Death is bygone to itself. Who is it that is dying? Who dies? It's just a mistaken and misleading that is deludedly fixated to any phenomena. Why is it so cloudy, so obscure? No enlightenment to this point. Begin to give, begin to get out of oneself, not just taking into oneself on and on. Start to give. Share it. Everything is by the foundation of the non-attachment, that which has nothing to do with attachment or non-attachment, engaging or disengaging altogether. Foundation of Nibbana as such. Foundation is not from mindfulness, not at all. Foundation is Nibbana, enlightenment, that which has nothing to do with attachment or non-attachment, is the foundation for everything. Foundation of everything. That is the true origin of everything, that which has nothing to do with attachment or non-attachment, doesn't have attachment or non-attachment, has nothing to do with attachment or non-attachment. This is the foundation of everything, you know. And all those who create mindfulness and consciousness, this is samsara that is created within mindfulness, concentration, contemplation, insight, meditative absorption. This is a new karma. The true essence is not about the beginning or ending, trying to begin or to end anything. There is no such a thing as attachment or non-attachment, engaging or disengaging. That's why terminologies, that which has nothing to do with attachment or non-attachment. that which has nothing to do with engaging or disengaging.